Get ready, Wham Bam Dashcam is the only dashcam channel fueled by our fans, featuring exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Watch what happened to Mike while he was heading home. Mike had been spending the night at a friend's house and was on his way home on Sunday morning when an SUV driver ran a red light and T-boned his Prius 2 blocks from home. By the time Mike crawled out of the passenger side, the driver of the SUV was out and telling a bystander that Mike had run a red light and nearly killed her. She then filed a claim with her insurance provider saying Mike was at fault. Mike sent her insurance provider, the same provider he uses, a copy of his dashcam footage, and they told him he had nothing to worry about. They paid him enough to replace his 2017 Prius with a brand new 2022 Prius a week later. Mike told us he can't recommend a dashcam enough and that they really are the best investment any vehicle owner can make. John is a snowplow operator who was working during a winter storm one afternoon. The driver of a Mercury Grand Marquis was driving too fast and spun across the center line and into the path of a pickup truck. The pickup truck hit the Grand Marquis, sending it spinning back across the road. Another vehicle then hit the pickup when the driver was unable to avoid a collision. Finally, a Honda driver, eager to avoid a Honda bump, went up onto the curb rather than rear-end the other vehicle. John stopped and shared his dashcam video with the involved drivers and responding police. Police told John the Grand Marquis driver was confused and didn't even know what direction he'd been going. Firefighters apparently had a hard time extracting him from the vehicle. Freddie was headed home from work when he was confronted by a pickup truck coming straight toward him and missing a wheel. As the pickup truck passed him, Freddie noticed a damaged Lexus appeared to be in pursuit. He turned around and followed both vehicles until they came to a stop in an alley. When he spoke with the Lexus driver, he found out the pickup driver had rear-ended them before hitting two other vehicles and driving off. While he was still talking to them, 3 cop cars arrived. When officers approached, the pickup driver floored the gas, but the truck was stuck. Freddie said the cops pulled him out of the truck and arrested him. He also told us the pickup driver was intoxicated. Thankfully, nobody was injured in this wild incident, and the guilty party will hopefully be held responsible for his actions. John was driving home when a semi-truck in the left lane suddenly merged into him, sending him spinning out of control and into a ditch. John didn't even know what had happened until he reviewed his dashcam footage. A responding officer spoke with the trucker and he immediately admitted fault. Sadly, John's Elantra was totaled. John told us he'd love to see more clips from Texas, and we agree. If you live in the Lone Star State, or anywhere really, send us your dashcam footage using the link in the description. Ian came across a Subaru whose driver was evidently not paying attention. Comment below and tell us why you think he didn't notice the light had turned green. Eventually, Ian got tired of waiting and honked to get the Subaru driver's attention. Not long after, a police SUV passed him before pulling behind the Subaru. A couple of blocks later, he pulled them over for a late-night chat. Joe was pulling a 40-foot trailer loaded with a 9,000-pound skid steer loader when an oncoming driver nearly hit him as he turned toward the interstate. At first glance, it might look like Joe is in the wrong here, but actually, the other driver has a yield sign. This means he's supposed to allow turning traffic to go in front of him, even if it means he has to stop and wait. Thankfully, Joe's brakes saved the day, and he was able to continue without further incident. Fiona watched one SUV rear-end another after the driver slammed on their brakes for a yellow light. Fiona wasn't able to hang around, but she told us she saw both parties out and walking around with no visible injuries. This submitter was driving home from a convention in Reno. A car in the left lane hit a big puddle and splashed water all over his windshield, temporarily blinding him. By the time the water had cleared, he drifted dangerously close to the other car. Thankfully, no collision occurred. Chris was headed to Walmart with his girlfriend when an oncoming pickup driver failed to yield and pulled across his lane.
Are you kidding me?
Chris hit the brakes and swerved while honking, barely avoiding a collision with the pickup truck. He then pulled into a gas station so his girlfriend could get some air and calm down.
I can turn around and find you.
This submitter was headed home after a long day of college classes when another driver suddenly entered the road ahead of him. Our submitter admits he was exceeding the speed limit when the collision occurred. Even so, the other driver admitted fault. Since our submitter couldn't find any damage to his Infiniti M35, they both agreed to let it go. Reese spotted a Mustang driver doing what Mustang drivers do.
Really well this time, he becomes an honor student.
Since nobody sent us a Tesla behaving badly this week, I guess this video will have to do. Reese just kept driving and told us this car was obviously a midlife crisis purchase. Victor watched a pickup driver merge in front of an SUV without signaling or checking their blind spot. The SUV driver swerved around the pickup rather than sideswiping it, nearly causing a collision with Victor. Thankfully, he was able to brake fast enough to avoid any contact. Victor told us he was surprised that no road rage followed and everyone went their separate ways. Ziggy's granddad was driving through a parking garage when the driver of a Mini Cooper suddenly backed into him. Incredibly, the impact totaled Ziggy's grandfather's Ford Kuga. Thankfully, he was able to replace it with a new one after the Mini driver admitted fault. Pete was driving to work one morning when an LA Metro bus came up next to him. He was shocked at what the bus driver did when the traffic light ahead of them turned red. Pete thinks the bus driver sped up to make the light, then continued even after it turned red. He told us he shook his head at the way a professional driver with passengers behaves on the road. Subscribe if you think that bus driver needs to be fired. Here's another submission from our good friend Akash, and before you correct my pronunciation of his name like so many others have, this is literally the way he told us to pronounce his name. Anyway, Akash had just merged into the leftmost lane when a pickup driver turned across traffic and into Akash's lane. Akash swerved hard into the middle lane to avoid a collision while honking at the other driver. Luckily, no contact was made, and his Ram 1500 Rebel wasn't damaged. Greg was driving to work in heavy traffic, and the sun was causing a lot of glare for drivers on his side of the road. Suddenly, an SUV turned from his lane into the left lane, cutting off another SUV. The SUVs collided. The heavy traffic made it impossible for Greg to stop, but he did tell us both drivers pulled over, hopefully to exchange information. Watch the car directly ahead. Did you see that? The car's hood suddenly folded back against the windshield, sending the grille flying. Thankfully, that mandatory gap under the hood gave the driver enough visibility to maneuver safely to the side of the highway. Virginia was driving along in her Ford Bronco when the driver of a Mazda in a left turn lane changed his mind and suddenly cut back into the straight lanes. Thankfully, Virginia was able to swerve and brake while honking, avoiding a collision with the meandering Mazda. She told us the driver had 2 kids in the vehicle with him and he never acknowledged his mistake. This submitter had their dashcam running in parking mode while their Mercedes was in a parking lot. A clip was saved after the dashcam detected the loud noise of a Jeep colliding with a pickup truck. Our submitter told us both vehicles were there when he returned to his car, but he didn't know about the dashcam footage until later. If he had, he would have left a note for the pickup driver offering them his footage for an insurance claim. Jason was on his way home after getting gas when he spotted a furry critter in the road. Thankfully, traffic was light and he was able to safely stop. Jason called this animal a possum. What do you think? Comment below if you think he's right or if you think it's something else. Jason gave the animal several little beeps of the horn until he waddled off the road. He told us that after he drove around it, he watched it hop up the curb in his side view mirror. Jason said, "He's not becoming roadkill today. What animal in the road have you stopped for? Come talk about it with us on our new patron-only Discord server."
Wham! Bam! We got a Patreon, man. Please support the show.